Welcome to Talking Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast. Powered by the Monroe County Reporters. Here are your hosts, Jason Harwood and Jacob Litton.
Let me get. All right. Yeah, there we go. We're up on the screen now, so that's good. All right. We are going to talk about these Detroit Lions today. Not the greatest showing yesterday, but they might not have had the worst day yesterday. I think that might go to Jacob. Jacob, there's a little less of Jacob talking to us today than normally. So why don't you recap what happened to you on Saturday night or Sunday morning?
Terrible Sunday. Just like any other Sunday, going to wake up. Actually, this one we were going to put up the Christmas decorations. Have all Sunday to watch football in peace, and then the Lions game at 8:00. And instead, my body decided to go haywire on me. Had some kidney stone pain. Went to the emergency room because it was really bad. They do a scan at the emergency room, and I find out I do have a kidney stone, but that my appendix is also inflamed, and they had to remove it that day. So I, woke up Sunday expecting to have a really good day, and then I ended up in the ER for hours, then having surgery, and then, now I'm here in the recovery process. And I really just needed the Lions to save my Sunday and come together against the Eagles, and that did not go my way either. So one of the worst Sundays in recent memory for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks. I told you my appendix story. It was not very. I doubt anyone has any good appendix stories. So, but
Right?
tells you.
No, those are never happy memories.
No, I wish you would have felt much better today had the Lions won last night as opposed
absolutely.
to losing. So, I just want to remind you guys can follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We're going live right now on YouTube. You can check us there later on if if you miss some of it. Follow us on Twitter at Talking Grit Pod, and always like and subscribe. All right, Jacob, there was some transactions. Why don't you get everybody caught up to where we are at?
Yes, there were some transactions, some not so happy transactions. So
Yes.
I think the biggest one on this list for everybody is Sam Laporta went on injured reserve. That, was not expected. Obviously, we knew he was battling an injury, but I did not have any sort of indication. I don't think anyone else did. Didn't seem like outside of that building that, this was that kind of injury. So Sam Laporta is on IR. His earliest return date is going to be against the Rams in Week 16, and we're really going to need him that week. He will be sorely missed for sure. We released defensive lineman Pat O'Connor with an injury settlement, signed offensive lineman Michael Neese to the active roster from the practice squad, and then we elevated Tom Kennedy and Jackson Meeks from the practice squad to the active-inactive list, and then Tom Kennedy actually inactive for the game.
Yeah, I think they probably elevated him just in case Tesla wasn't able to go, but Tesla was able to go, so he took the spot. Dan Campbell this week or today, in addition to talking about the game last night, was asked about defensive players coming back, and it seems to be that DJ Reed is a good chance of coming back this week based on what Dan Campbell said, and also Malcolm Rodriguez. I think he's got to be activated by tomorrow. So I mean, there's always a chance you could activate him and then keep him inactive, but we either have to activate him or put him back on the IR. Based on his practice schedule, I'm going to imagine that Malcolm Rodriguez is good to go. And I'm wondering if he just didn't get activated last week because we needed the roster spots elsewhere. Our linebacking core is fairly healthy, or that is healthy outside of Zach Cunningham. Um, you know, then maybe we just didn't need someone there. We needed offensive line help and defensive back help.
The timeline
Marcus,
for that is weird. So I don't know if you
what?
knew that. Like, so they started the 21-day window on Monday the 27th. So
Mhm.
like in my head, and I saw somebody else post this online too, is that he had to be activated by today or he was out for the rest of the season. So
Yeah,
I'm following updates all day long waiting for this, and it just never came. And then
yeah,
Dan Campbell says he thinks that Rodrigo and DJ are going to play this week. So
yeah,
I guess maybe his clock didn't officially start until tomorrow, and that was just reported wrong originally. Or if like
yeah,
maybe today was just the deadline for, I don't know. I guess maybe you have tomorrow morning, like before practice or something like that, to actually activate him before. The
yeah. I don't
timeline
know.
is weird though. Did you see
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Like all day
So
I was refreshing, waiting to have him active, and then when it didn't, when it passed by, there was also no news story about him being out. So I'm like, okay,
yeah.
what's going on here?
I think I saw Justin Rogers say they have until Tuesday to activate them. So maybe it's like 21 full days, and then on the 22nd day, that's when you gotta do your declaration. So
Monday's
maybe
day
that's it.
0.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, but I don't think we're worried about that. I mean, it sounds like he's gonna, be active this week, which
Right.
at the very least, he's very good in special teams. So we will see. We will get some use, and he will get on the field. I, and any he might take any snaps Grant Stewart would have got, in the goal line or something like that. I could see that happening. Davenport and Pascal are getting close per Dan Campbell, and also they're gonna start Khalil Dorsey's clock pretty soon. So the defensive side of the ball is getting healthier. Obviously, huge hit with Sam Laporta going down. That was, I think we saw. We'll talk about it when we get to the offense, but I think we saw the effects of that like the last night for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, let's stop here. All right, Jacob. Special teams, we missed an extra point. And that was the whole JMO situation. It backed it up to a 48-yard kick. He missed it pretty bad. Jake Bates did the extra point, but later on he would go to kick a 54-yarder when we had the wind, to our back. So and that kick looked really strong going in. I mean, like dead center. It's one of his best kicks of the year, to be honest with you. So I
Right.
was happy with that. Jack Fox, 4 punts. You know, I would have liked to sometimes we weren't pinning him as deep as I would like to, get him inside the 10. That would have been really, really good with the way our defense is playing. But he did pretty good. He had a long of 55. And seems like a running theme for both of us. And Dan Campbell mentioned it today. We need to get a good return. We need at least to pop one here or there. I think our average is fine. Like getting out, we generally, I think we had one that got stopped at the 20. Khalif got stopped at the 20, but generally we're close to the 30-yard line. But I'm seeing these other teams like the Bears, that part of their comeback was getting this huge return. The Vikings the week before, like we just need to see, every once in a while just pop one. It would be, and yesterday would have been helpful with the way our offense was struggling.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know if that is like a personnel issue, the people returning the kicks, because now we've got Khalif back there returning the kicks along with Jacob Sailors, or if that's just something to do with our special teams and the way they're blocking or the way they're playing these.
Hmm.
Um, it does not seem like there's very many lanes that pop up. In the
Hmm.
kick return, usually you see a lane. That's all they need is just a little bit of room, and they burst through that hole. It does not seem to happen for us.
No.
And when we do get additional yards, it's kind of either they're bouncing off or they're kind of juking around at the last minute and getting a few extra yards. But yeah, week in and week out, we always talk about this. We're just something's got to change. We're not getting it done in that aspect of the game.
Yeah, I agree. And even in the punt return game, we're not seeing, Khalif's not seeing very much room now. I know, the Eagles are pretty good in special teams, but I would like, you know, we could. This is if we needed a game where to get the special teams, like, help the offense. This was that game, and it just didn't happen. And we seemed like we were fighting against it all night.
Agreed.
All right, let's move on to the defense, which I know I you couldn't ask for much more from this defense. They did exactly what I thought they needed to do. Obviously played well enough to win this game. You hold someone to 60 points. You with the Lions offense, we should win that game. 90 out of 100 times. It just happened to be that 10% that we didn't win this game. Was there any players, or where do you want to start with the defense?
I mean, just as a whole, to ask of the defense what we did, I mean, they kept us in the game the whole time, right? I mean, the
Hmm.
Eagles offense was not able to move the ball. They had 4 scoring drives, and 2 of them were the ones that started on our side of the field. There was like that tipped interception. We held them to a field goal there.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, the fake punt, I think they started on our side. We went for it on 4th and 1. We didn't get it again. So, I mean, their average starting position, I think, was almost to midfield. So, the fact that defense held it down the way they did was, it was amazing. And I know some people are, not to not to kick us when we're down, but I think some people are like, well, you know what, we are missing a lot of players, and that if we do rematch the Eagles, this team's going to look quite different, which is true. But I mean, we're playing without 3 of our starting defensive backs, and those backups played their asses off.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not letting anything up. I think they held Devontae Smith to 1 catch, right? I know I
Yeah.
texted
One
you
catch
about
for
that. I was
8 yards. One
thank
catch
God
for
that
eight
AJ
yards.
Brown went off about whatever, because then they're just feeding him all these targets, and he's not coming down with most of them.
Mhm.
But Amik is having a great year. Rock Yasin played really well again, with obviously the last play, which was not his fault, but Harper stepped up. So you can't really use that excuse of like, well, got some backups in there. They still played well. Like Shep has them ready to go. The defense
Mhm.
just, I mean, they did exactly what was asked of them on short
Yep.
field to be able to stop this team. It's painful because if the offense just had a little bit more, if we had a few more better decisions and stuff, then we could have won this game. And we were still in it to the very end, despite everything that happened before.
All right. So if I tell you before the game, Jacob, Hertz is going to go 14 for 28 for 135. He's only going to rush for 31 yards. Devontae Smith go 1 catch for 8 yards. AJ Brown's going to catch seven receptions, but he's only going to get 49 yards. Barkley's going to rush 26 times, but he's only going to get 83 yards. You're going to take that 10 out of 10 times, right? 100%.
Absolutely. I'm going to
Yeah.
assume that we win that game by maybe like 14 points.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I just, it just really upsets me that we could have a defensive performance that good and then we don't win this game. And this is not like if you look at the Green Bay loss and the Minnesota loss, the offensive numbers for their team look just like this. Look just like this. Like we are dominating, and anyone that looks at that box score goes, "How could you possibly lose?" Well, it's either turning it over like we did. We turned it over on our own end. It's a tip pass. It is what it is. But the defense did their job and held them. But that's 3 points there. And then you know the turnover on downs. When we get to the offense, we're going to go break down. All those. I want to go through each one of those decisions with you and kind of just
Yep, for
what's your
sure.
thought. I know hindsight's going to be different. Obviously, we'll be like, why'd we do that? But yeah, I want you to.
We were texting as the game went on, though, and I
Oh
think we're
yeah,
both on the
yes,
same page for most of this.
yep, 100%. So, but I want to, be clear with the listeners that hindsight's one thing, and we could talk about, we'll talk about it because I think there might be we might have some disagreements on going forward on some of those fourth downs, but we'll get there. But you just look at, you're right, Amik and Rocky Sin. Just I know the Philadelphia Eagles they're struggling on offense, whatever, but Amik and Rocky Sin did exactly what we needed them to, other than getting a turnover, getting a pick. But I gotta tell you, Hurts was missing so bad on some of these throws that I don't even, a pick was not even possible on some of this stuff.
Yes. And I mean, they tried several deep shots, and they did not really have separation at all.
No, no, the defense did everything that they could. Um, we'll get to the defensive PI at the end of. We'll save that for the end of the defense. I want to talk about a couple other things. Um, in my keys to victory was control the red zone because the Eagles are the number one red zone team. 1 of 3. We kept them out, the end zone 2 out of the 3 times, which was a huge win, and we should have won the game because we did that.
Right.
After that interception, and then to hold them for a field goal, that I told my boys, I was like, this is a huge win. They're like, we just got an interception and gave up, got 3 points. I was like, yes, but that was a quick change. If they could have scored a touchdown real quick right there. That was huge for our defense to come up with that and just hold them for a field goal.
Yeah, they started at our 11-yard line, and they weren't able to
Mhm.
get it done.
Right. There was, especially for that team. I mean, if we give up anything, to get close to the end zone, they're going to try that tush push, but maybe it wouldn't have worked because we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
How we did on that. I looked through. I don't know. Did you look at any of the snap counts, Jacob?
Briefly.
Okay. So McNeil played, I don't know if you realize, 93% of the snaps. Ali McNeil played 93% of the snaps. And he was playing at edge. They were really beefing up the line. They needed to stop that run. And
I did
they
not
did.
notice that as I was watching the game. I'm usually pretty on with that. I did not see Aleem on the edge.
They had him on the edge some of these
Maybe I
plays.
thought it was wheat.
Yeah, maybe. And Tyleek got uptick in snaps, 36
I did
snaps,
notice that.
which was good. Would
He
have
was
liked to
in
see
stuff in the run a little bit, so
him.
more
I mean,
opportunities.
there's definitely a difference. Like, I know he's not getting a lot of pressure, but there is definitely a lot of, the run defense stuff. He is very good at stuff in the run. And if we lose DJ Reader next year, I feel pretty confident having Tyleek in there doing DJ Reader's take up 2 blockers or getting in there. I feel pretty comfortable with that. I'm not saying they're 1-to-1, but at some point
No,
we're
but
gonna
with
lose
a
DJ
full
Reader.
year under his belt too,
Yeah.
right? You would
Yep.
hope anyway.
Yep. Lacey was down to 19 snaps, so he lost snaps to Roy Lopez, who was up to 28 snaps, and Roy Lopez again had a sack, looked good. Definitely tons of push up front.
Yeah, it makes you wonder why he's not been getting more opportunities earlier on. Now that we're seeing this out of him,
Yeah,
but he's making an impact, and that
he
dude
is.
stands out when he's shoving people back into the line like that, back into
Yeah.
the quarterback.
Yeah, I'm thinking that Shep's going to want him back next year, so we'll see if we can work him into the contract situation. But all those guys that we talked about were vital on the tush push. Stopping them back to back at the end of the game was the only reason we had a chance to get to the PI situation. Again, like we got the ball back, we didn't do anything with it, but we were able to stop them on downs, which was, I mean, I thought, I was like, okay, we stopped them once. There's no way we're stopping them again. And we clearly
Right.
stood them up. It was awesome.
Yeah, and then the penalty, obviously, good call.
Yeah. 2 penalties, man. I got it twice. My great guarantee worked out twice, so we'll get to that later on. But the first one, I was glad that I got the second one because the first one was definitely, should have
A
it
fluke.
shouldn't have been. Like, how ironic that the first one they
Such
get
a
called
weird
for a
play.
false start wasn't a false start. We were in the neutral zone. But
I don't understand why. So the first one was when he was like tapping. It was Tyleek, right? And he was
Yeah.
like tapping Tyleek's hand or something. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what and then he decides to like reach across and touch him. So then Tyreek kind of just dives at him.
Yeah.
Really weird situation.
Right, but as soon as Tyleek's in the neutral zone and he puts his hand out there and he touches him, he should have been flagged for that. Should have been offsides because it's a neutral zone
Because
infraction.
he's across, right.
He's in the neutral zone now. If he doesn't get in the neutral zone and the offense moves, then that's different. But that should have been flagged. But there was a second one for good measure that I don't know if it was the running back or the wide receiver, whatever. He jumped real quick, and I was like, oh God, thank God that happened. Got my grit guarantee going. Do you want to talk about the defensive PI right now?
Let's just talk about it while we're on the defense. Get out of the way. If we
Okay.
had talked about this yesterday, obviously this would have been a 10-minute rant by me, but I'm a little bit over it now.
Yeah. Go
I,
ahead.
week after week, this comes up where I just say they let these offensive receivers get away with way too much. They let this happen. They don't ever call it fair. And now I don't know what's worse, the fact that they flipped it and called defensive pass interference, or if he would have just caught, pushed off and caught the ball, and then we would have had to live with that forever. I don't know what, clearly, if they're going to call defensive pass interference, they're looking right at him, right? They've got a good beat on what's going on. So how do you miss that full shove?
Yeah.
And the only reason that Rock grabs him is because he's being shoved away. He's got to grab onto his hand or something.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And then of course you got the entire country, even Eagles fans were like, yeah, you got kind of screwed out of that one. Which in the grand scheme of things, obviously with the way the game was going, there was no guarantee there. But I mean, that we would have had another chance.
Yes.
That kept the game going for them. And,
I didn't want the end game to end
PI.
on that. It was dumb. It's like calling a foul on the last shot of NBA game or something like that. Usually
Right.
you let them play, but it wasn't even close. Like you said, that should have been an AJ Brown, and that's what Rocky Sin thought. He's like, yeah, he's definitely. They finally got him. He's pushing off on me, and
Yeah.
and I know what's going on Twitter is like a grab screenshot of Rocky Sin having his hand on his arm, but the only reason it's there is because like you said, AJ Brown is just shoving him in the shoulder, pushing him back. And the thing is, it wasn't even catchable. It was like way over his head.
Right.
And it, the whole thing is we did not lose because of that at all. But I would have loved to have the offense to have one more chance with the ball. It, we had 2 minutes. They gave us a free timeout because it would have been an incomplete pass. That would have been sweet too. Basically, we had the whole field open to us. We could do whatever we wanted, but yeah, I want something to be done about it. The reviewing sounds good. I sure that opens up another, can of worms, but some of these calls that are so egregious, Chris Collinsworth for crying out loud was like that was terrible. Like immediately, like it wasn't even like I couldn't wait to get to that review. I could not wait to get to the replay because I was like, I gotta see
Yeah.
this. And
Because
I
anybody with
expected,
eyes sees what's
yeah,
happening and knows what the call should be.
yeah, it was so egregious and just
You have to
I
make that, especially like within 2 minutes. Even if you don't make them reviewable the rest of the game, within 2 minutes, you have to make those kinds of fast interference calls reviewable.
yeah,
It's got to come from upstairs or maybe. And, that's the problem when they tried to do that on like the short term thing is that, yeah, they were reviewable, but they never reviewed them because they just didn't want to get into overturning the calls and stuff. But then you've got situations like the Saints game. I mean, obviously the stakes were not as high on this one, but I mean, this was cut and dry. It should have been pretty clear.
right.
They could have just even waved the flag and said, no, maybe not retroactively call it on AJ Brown, but at least say, you know what, there was a significant amount of hand fighting and, there's no defensive pass interference on the play. And then it's 4th down.
Yeah. Well, the problem is I mean, that's like normal in every game, but especially this game, both teams, they were allowing contact.
Right.
You need to be consistent. It's like the strike zone thing. Like, okay, if you're gonna call the pitch, 2 inches on the outside all game, well then you live with it and be like, well, at least I know these are the rules for this game. Same thing for this. Like they should not have called that right then. I, I just don't get it, and it irks me. But it's not the reason we lost the game. We could have won that game. We could have won that game earlier if we'd have just played well. So let's move on to the offense, and we could talk about because I have a feeling we'll have a lot of thoughts on this subject. Goff ended up
I
14 of
mean,
37. I'm sorry, what?
yeah.
Did you have something
I
else?
was just gonna say because of the way the game was, every time we got the ball, to me anyway, it felt like if we get it together this time, we're fine.
Yeah.
I never felt like we just were never gonna do it. I just was like, even with the JMO touchdown drive, we had a couple long plays and that was it. It just
Mhm.
felt to me like any drive now, we're gonna be making some good calls, we're gonna be making some chunk plays, we're gonna be doing okay. I mean,
Mhm.
we drove consistently, and just for one reason or another, we weren't kicking the field goals. The play calling got worse in the short yardage situations, but to me, I never, even in the fourth quarter, I still felt like, okay, when we get the ball, we're going to be able to do something here. We're going to get it done. And then it just
Mhm.
got worse and worse. And then even there at the end, I was like, they better not let us get the ball again because I think we're going to go down there. We're going to tie this game up.
Yeah. Do you,
Terrible.
I kept asking press. I was like, we go because whenever I thought it was our last possession, I'm like, if we score, are we going for two? Well, we go for two. You know, and man, on the
I
road
mean, we were
sometimes
0 for 5 on fourth down, but I mean, the
I
way the
know.
rest of the game went, they probably would have.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. The way the defense was going, So
I could
let's
have
get into
lived a
some.
little better with that loss.
Yeah. Goff 14-37, 255, touchdown, interception. He was only sacked twice. For as much as he seemed to be getting pressured, he was only sacked twice in this game. Um, and I don't know if you know this or not, but the pressure rate was actually higher in the Commanders game than it was in this game. I know that, all they
I
wanted to
didn't
talk
know that it
about
was
was,
higher, but
yeah,
I at least felt like, I don't know which ones they classify as pressures or not. I thought the bigger issue was just him missing his throws, and then some of the times when he was getting the throws, the receivers just weren't coming down with it.
yep.
I don't think that it was solely because of the pressure or how the Eagles played, and they
No,
did.
well,
They tore apart the interior offensive line again. I do think that Panay Sewell was not 100% healthy. He was just a step slower than he usually is,
hmm
right? I mean, did you kind of get that too?
oh, yeah. Well, I mean, one of the fourth down, that touchdown, the fourth and goal, he just totally whiffs on his block. I don't know if you saw that or not. That's what allowed the pressure. And if he holds that block, then, he probably hits Brock Wright for that touchdown. He just has,
Was that
another
the
second to,
delayed blitz though, or did he just literally whiff on it? I
he
know there
just
was
whiffed
one
it.
that he stood. Okay, there's one where he stands on his guy drops, and as soon as he drops, he goes in and cuts in on the tackle. And then as soon
Mm,
as he commits the tackle, I think it was Jalen Phillips ran in. I don't
Yeah.
remember if that was a sack, but it was a pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and, the narrative about having a lot of pressure, it's true that they were getting pressure, but the thing that hurt was they only blitzed 12.8% of time. That's the lowest by far. So they were getting pressure with just four. That was the difference. There was a lot more people in coverage, and missing Laporta was huge on our third downs, as I said before.
Absolutely.
But if you look at the time to throw, it was right on par. He was actually one of the higher games this year for time to throw. It was 2.66 seconds. Commanders was 2.67. The Vikings was 2.44. Buccaneers was 2.5. Chiefs was 2.6. So most of the games, around the same time. So, it's not like Goff didn't have time to throw. He was probably a little
Before
more
looking at
bothered.
these stats, though, before looking at the stats and everything, just with the eye test, did you feel like it was the pressure getting to him, or did you feel like he was just missing his throws and was just not? I mean, he wasn't missing all of his throws, but a lot of the ones that were close too, I couldn't tell if they were throwaways. There were some where it was just like, the receiver was not quite there. Him and Amon Ra weren't on the same page. There was also at least 3 or 4 targets where Amon Ra was just not open, and he was
Mm,
trying to just force it on that fourth
yep.
down. That one where Brock Wright was open, But to me, watching that game, it just felt like Goff was off. It didn't feel like, okay, this pressure is just getting to him too much.
Yeah. It was not
Is that how
Goff's
you felt,
best
or
game. Yes, I 100% felt that he was just not as accurate as we're used to seeing now. 14 of 37 will tell you that. I mean, it was like his completion percentage is like 40% or, a little south of 40%, where he's normally sitting nearly double that. He's been sitting in the
right?
mid 70s. So
I think it's a career low, right? Or is it just a Lions low?
I don't know if it's a career low, but it's got to be close. I mean,
not good.
that's a pitiful completion percentage. But what was I gonna say? Yes, go back to your question. Yes, I think he was off. There was quite a few drops too, like where the ball wasn't placed perfectly, and the receivers weren't coming up with it. There, JMO had some. Amon-Ra definitely. I'm convinced that there's something going on with Amon-Ra's wrist or hand or something. He was out. Those few weeks ago when he was on the injury list. I've seen him shake his hand. I've seen it in the Commanders game. He looked at his hand afterwards and was shaking it. So I'm convinced that there's like either a wrist issue that's bothering him or like some sort of it's contributed to strength in that hand. Something's not right there. And I'm not saying he needs to be out or anything like that, but he's not a guy that's dropping. And I don't contribute anything else. Like I know his work ethic is good. I know his drive is there. I know his want to's there. So it has nothing to do with that. It's either a fluke thing or, you know, there's an injury there that's, not enough to keep him out of the game, but is affecting, his ability to catch the pass.
Yeah, I think you're 100% on. I mean, Amon-Ra does not drop the ball. And,
Yeah.
he does the jugs machine every single day. There's no, maybe it is a wrist injury. I can't tell if it's heavily taped or if it's something where he does an injection or he's got something going on before every game to allow him to play, maybe. I mean, saw that he played with a torn oblique. So I'm sure the wrist injury is not going to keep him out. But there's got to be something like that going on because he does not drop the ball. And a few of them, I know the one, like he's running across and it's thrown behind him. He's got to try to, adjust. That one was kind of bad. There's one where it was just really low. It was too low and kind of skipped right before it got to him. But there have been some, that seem to hit him right in the hands or close to the chest. And that's the thing, too. He seems to be using his chest to catch the ball more than he usually does. And I think that kind of, alludes to the fact he might have some sort of injury as well.
Yeah. Just get back to what talking about Goff. I just want to finish that thought. He had his average separation on the receivers was 3.1 yards. It's slightly below his average, but it doesn't indicate that the receivers didn't have space. So my feeling is
what is that metric? Say it again. That's
3.1 yards of space, like average separation on the receivers.
So how much they're open?
Yeah, how much space they have between like their nearest defender on average. So like just for example, Commanders was 4.2, Vikings 2.7, Buccaneers 3.4. So you're all in that, same ballpark. I mean, they definitely had good coverage. Quinton Mitchell was all over Amon-Ra, and I could understand why, he wasn't able to get the ball in there. But it begs the question is, Khalif Raymond caught 4 passes in the last game, did not show up anywhere in there. Tesla, again, not, they had 1 target, but it was, basically a throwaway at that point. I just, there should be other plays to get these other guys. Someone's got to be open, right? They, Adores, or was it, what's their, is it Adoris Jackson or it's their,
Adoree Jackson, I think.
Adoree Jackson. Yeah. So, like everyone complains about how he was. Why aren't we targeting him? Why aren't we setting up isolation matches on him and just let them go and move things around and then hit Amon-Ra? But when you're gonna just target him 12 times and he only gets 2 catches, he still gets 42 yards on the 2 catches. But it just there was a lot. I had issues with the play calling in this game, and a lot of it come down to stubbornness for Dan Campbell and it's only the second game calling. Luckily the first one was against the Commanders. I was hoping for more out of this game, and it just didn't come.
Yeah, my biggest issue was the 4th down calls, but the other one is just in general the running game. It's like yet again we just Gibbs ended up 5 catches, 107 receiving yards. He was tearing them apart once he got in open space, but he only had 12 carries. You flip that over, the Eagles gave Saquon 26 rushing attempts. He only had 80 some yards. But it's just like, why is Gibbs not getting more opportunities here? He's one of the best running backs in the game, and we continuously have to talk about how he's not getting enough carries. And I mean, I know the one drive, it was like we threw the ball 6 times, had 1 rush, and then it was like fourth fourth down. We threw it on 4th and 3, I think, on that drive too, and we still didn't get it.
No.
Goff seemed off. The passing game wasn't quite there. We've got a good running game, right? Like, why were we not utilizing a little bit more? Especially once we saw what Gibbs was doing in space.
Yep. And you could say, well, I mean, there was times where Gibbs was getting shut down at the middle, but when I saw Monty run, Monty's patient and was able to get through there. They weren't loading the box because they were only putting 4 on that line. It's like we could have did that, and then we talked about one of the keys to victory was Philly is really susceptible to the play action pass. So it blew my mind that Dan Campbell calling the plays got away from the run. Like, okay, just stick with it. Let Demo get his 4 yards on first down. Let him get another 4 yards and then hit him. It was especially towards late in that game when we were still only down like 1 or 2 scores. We've like totally abandoned the run. They were pinning their ears back, and that was just compounding Goff's issue. Was that they could do whatever they wanted, and they didn't have to worry about uh, the pass game at all. And the few times that we got Gibbs wide open in space, he made them pay like severely.
Right.
5 receptions for 107 yards was what you said. The one drive we basically rode him all the way down the field until we had to we lost it on fourth down again.
Yep.
It's just I don't understand why we didn't stick with Gibbs or Monty in the run game. That was my biggest gripe with the play call at all was they're on Goff, get him find a way to get him on or run double screens, do something to get them off of what they were doing. The problem was that they were only rushing 4 and able to get that pressure. And so they had a lot of defenders back, and that was going to be that made it difficult.
Exactly. But then if you're having Gibbs go outside or do some sort of misdirection, you're asking these linebackers to come up and make a play.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Gibbs can make you miss. You only have to make one guy miss, and then you're deep into the field. He's done it time and time again. It just was not, it just didn't seem like it was that kind of game. They just weren't giving him enough opportunities. That's really all there is to it.
Right. And we didn't mention JMO, but JMO had another good game. 4 catches, 88 yards, and obviously he had that touchdown. The biggest thing was that, again, JMO, celebration, whatever. It was ill-timed, especially in this game, and it may have proved a factor later on in this game. Had we not went for it on fourth down, got a field goal, we could have had some shots. I'm not saying we lost because of that, but it was just another thing that, like, you get that good feeling, and then all of a sudden it's taken right back, and some of the momentum's gone.
Right. Absolutely.
And then obviously third down, we did not do well. We were 3 for 13. Brock Wright, we're in the Sam Laporta role, had 2 catches for 8 yards, and he's not getting any yak. Like, Laporta will break a tackle, get the first down when you don't expect him. Brock
He'll
Wright's
carry
not
you
gonna do
across that line.
Yeah, he will. And maybe that's part of the problem why his back's hurt, but it was very noticeable right away. But that's the reason why I want to see, Raymond or Tesla or someone else. We can't be just having all these targets go to JMO and Amon-Ra. We have these other wide receivers on the field. We have to get them involved and spread that defense out, get them thinking about going other places and, take advantage of that. I was very disappointed.
What do you think
in
that this says about Tesla? Because Laporta being out, I don't know, for me anyway, I kind of thought that meant probably more opportunities for him, right? And
Yep.
That's kind of what you kind of said with your roar alert, because we were thinking this is going to happen. He's going to be getting more targets. He's going to be out there more.
Yeah.
And he only played 20 snaps still.
Yeah.
Which obviously it's not the same as Brock Wright being able to slide in as a tight end, but you got to think those targets should be coming, especially if we're going to be using them as a weapon. And
I know.
The more as the season goes on, it just looks like this is almost just a redshirt year for him, and that he's still just learning the offense, and that he's just not ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it looked really good, preseason and then even early season, right? We were thinking, okay, this is just the beginning. And, we keep adding them to the Roar Alert or the Great Guarantee, thinking this is going to be the week. And it's almost a point where, no, not going to put him on that anymore because, and, hopefully it does happen. And I'm rooting for the kid for it to happen. I think it'll make the offense much better. We're missing, like Tip Patrick would have been a guy that would have got some of those third down shots, right? Right? Those 4th and 3s, those 3rd and 3s, big target. And you're hoping that Tessa, by this far into the season, should be getting that. Whether we're not calling the plays, whether Tesla's not ready, whether Goff doesn't fully trust him, I don't know what the answer is there, but it is disappointing. And it is what a big thing that's lacking in our offense. And it's very glaring that now that Laporte is out, right? Because I mean, the Laporta had
Right.
really taken that spot this year as like, I mean, he's been a third down spot is pretty much his whole career here, but this year, especially with our third down struggling, he was the guy that reliably, if they're going to take Amon out, then we're going to get it to Laporta
On 3rd and 4th down. You think if
Yeah.
Laporta's in this game, we hit at least one of these 4th down tries.
Yeah.
I think if he was running that route instead of Brock Wright, maybe Goff would have found him a little quicker.
Yes.
But the pressure was on that time, and he knew where Amon-Ra was going to be, and that's kind of just where he went.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I liked about Brock Wright was that, the focus always with the Laporta, so Brock Wright could like leak out sometimes, especially in the goal line. Like he'll get like, 2 or 3 touchdowns a year just because, he'll leak. Everyone thinks he's blocking down and then he leaks out late and then cuts across. And that's kind of what this was. Like he leaked out a little bit late across the whole thing, but Goff had to hurry the throw. And he was just looking at Amon-Ra. He's like, I got to get rid of this. I'm going to throw it to my best option. But if he'd had one, maybe like another half second, he could have saw that Brock Wright was wide open and he could have just like laid the ball up there. There was no one over there that could have even come for the backside to like knock that ball out. He could have just
Right.
laid that ball up there and Brock Wright would have caught it for days. Man, gosh, really upsets me thinking about it right now. But
Yeah, I know.
missed opportunities, and that's what this game was about, right? Missed opportunities. The only thing I want to talk about with the run was I don't know if you noticed, but we ran 8 2 RB sets in this game. I looked through the film to see, and there were the short pass to the middle for Jameson Williams went for 19 yards. That was on a 2 RB set. The 42-yard short pass to Gibbs, that was on a 2 RB set, and then Monty had another 6-yard run. But we had 8 different times where we ran double back sets, and I would have thought that
And
would be
3
just
of
more
those 8
successful.
times we had positive plays.
We had very good times. We ran it on our last, or in the fourth quarter twice. The one was with 2:51. Our second, or that was our last time with the ball. He got sacked for -7 yards, but at that point they were just pinning their ears back. But this is what I'm saying, man. Just run to our, if they go to shade to Gibbs side, I trust Monty on a screen. Give him some space and get him out there,
Yes.
and he'll get some yards. And
He's tough to bring down too.
he's very tough, and he could catch. Like everyone wants to say Gibbs, and Gibbs is obviously the game breaker, and I'd love to get him in space. But also Monty is a guy that's, you might hit him at the five, after 5 yards, but he's gonna get you 7 or 8, and then third, second down becomes more manageable. We can either learn to take a shot on that one or just go get the first down and fight another day.
Right.
So let's get down to the fourth down calls, because I think you and I both had issues with the aggressiveness here. I will say my overall theme on this was that the defense was playing so well that I wanted to play the field position game. So like a majority of these, like I would have liked, I was advocating for a punt. I know we'd only gain like maybe 30 yards of field position, but you're hoping that Hurts either makes a mistake, because he's prone to do that, pushing it, and their offense wasn't doing very much. I mean, they weren't going to drive, just like we were having trouble driving the whole length of the field. They weren't going to be able to do that too. And like you said, their scoring drives, most of them started at midfield because we were handing the ball over there. I would have liked to do that. Then you open up the chance that they punt it and Khalif breaks one. We get a special teams play. Something happens, right? I mean, you're hoping that one of the other units besides the offense is going to do something, either get a turnover or a special teams play. And I think I I get that, the Lions are aggressive. I get what Dan Campbell's all about. But also, I think that this defense is different than anything that we've had in the past. And Dan Campbell needs to realize that we should just punt this and live to fight another day.
It's also just the fact, we're in Philadelphia. We're not at home. So that's a factor to think about as well. And I mean, we're going to go through these fourth downs anyway, but some of these were like, okay, I can see why we went for it here. But then there was a few of them. The one that's really bad for me is the fake punt. I don't get the fake punt. And then there was a 4th and 1 where we ran the ball straight up the middle with Jahmyr Gibbs. It's like, why was that the play call there? And he had already ran the ball. I think that was a 4 and out, right? He ran it 3 times, and the 4th and 1, he ran it again. And then we go right at Jalen Carter, right up the middle, and ask. I want to say Cologne was in on this play. I think it was like Cologne and Glasgow were the ones that had to like stop them, and he just runs right up the middle and gets crashed in. If you're gonna run it, why would you not let that go to Panay? You had Skipper in there too as like an extra. That one I just feel like the play call should have been different. I'm not mad about going for it on 4th and 1 in that situation. That's early on in the game, but yeah. And then as the game goes on, you see that we're not being successful on 4th down. It just felt like, okay, we're just going to keep going for it anyway. And, we refuse to play the field position game, and we refuse to take the points when the points were there.
Yeah. So the first one was the one you just talked about where Jahmyr Gibbs ran up. That was with 13:37 left in the second quarter. 4th and 1, we were at our 48 at midfield. We were at the 48-yard line. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the play call running up the middle. It was destined to fail. I think the previous play we ran up the middle, didn't get anything, and then we just go right back to it. I would have liked to seen a different play call there. The second one was the fake punt, which they left their defense out. They were ready for that play. That should have been killed right away. Dan Campbell said that should have been killed. And I think your words of the text was like, if we're gonna go for it at 4th and 2, I'd rather have our offense out there than this. We're not fooling anybody. People are ready for that. I mean, I know we haven't done a fake punt in quite a while, but we weren't gonna fool them, and they were ready for it with their defensive lineman. And yeah, I don't get it there, but that's another one. I would have rather just punted and let our defense fight another day. That's when we were at our 43. Philly was only up 3-0 at that time.
Right. It was very similar to the one like right before that. It was like 2 minutes of game clock. We ran up the middle. We didn't get it from our 48. Then, we stop them. We get the ball back. Then we're on our 43. And at this time it's 4th and 2. I just don't understand. So I don't know if Dan Campbell, if they said in the press conference, I did not see that today. But I mean, if that was the play call coming out of the huddle is that we're going to fake this punt, why was that not killed right when you've seen, okay, their starting defense is out here. They're playing this. Yes. They're playing right into what we're calling. Why would you not kill that and punt it away then? Because then they're in a terrible position to defend the punt. Then you're talking about really, nailing them deep, and then they got to come back further.
Right. Yeah. And Dan Campbell said he should have killed that one. He said the other ones, the other thing he said that like there was just, people didn't make plays that normally would make plays on the 4th down, which let me go back like through 2 or 3 weeks. And John Morton basically said, the players aren't, everyone took it as John Morton not taking personal responsibility and blaming the players. Dan Campbell here is basically saying the same thing. The players didn't, players weren't, our reliable players didn't make the plays. And I think he's talking about Amon-Ra probably dropping some, J-Mo not going down and pick that. It wasn't the best ball from Goff. That's on the next one where that's the third one. That's on 3rd down. We're down 13-6 to Philly. We are 4th and 5 at the Philly 32. So this was in field goal range.
That was the first one that I felt like we should kick. That was in the second half. Points were coming, harder to come by. We'd already failed a couple times on 4th down. That one, I know the next one, the one where we're on like the 3-yard line, even in the circumstances, I felt like we probably could have kicked that. But this one, when we're back, it's 4th and 5. You got to have a great play call, and you've got to have something that we've seen, throughout the game to make you think that we're getting that, on a high percentage play. And I don't think that it was. And obviously it didn't turn out, and we really could have used those points right there.
Yeah. I mean, that's I don't know what way the wind was facing that, if we were going to be kicking into the wind, and that probably factored into it. But it's regardless of how, I don't know if I necessarily go, oh, we haven't made a 4th down, so we got to quit going for it on 4th down. I don't know if I want to think about that. But the offense,
no, this is lower percentage though.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just saying I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying the way I think about it is like the offense as a whole hasn't been moving the ball consistently. Their defense is playing really well, so you have to think about that stuff. And yeah, say he makes it, that makes it 13-9. You know, had we made an extra point because we didn't have a penalty, we're within a field goal at that point. And then what's what makes the next one, the fourth and goal play where we talked about earlier, Panay let someone through. We threw it to St. Brown. Brock Wright was, we had like a half a tick later. Brock Wright would have been wide open. But I would have kicked the field. I was wanting to kick the field goal. I know we were down on the 3. I would have kicked the field goal there and just been like, okay, our defense.
Here's the circumstance that might have changed is had we kicked the field goal previously, like you just said, if we had made that extra point, we kicked that field goal and we were down by 3, and then we drive down until the third quarter, then maybe it's okay. Like, you know what? Let's go for it here. We're going to pin them deep. What are the odds they're going to be able to pull? That situation starts being more under control for me. But we're still down 6-13 at that point, and we have not put points on the board. We need to get points. So that's why I think I text you on this one too. Like I wanted to come away with something there.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to feel good. Like part of that is like, okay, we got down points. Do we want to get? This is where I thought Dan Campbell got stubborn. Was that one? Like I felt like he was stubborn there, and I also think, uh, the punt thing. I don't know why we did that. Those are the 2 calls that I feel like he was just stubborn. He was like, we got it. I trust my guys, and we're gonna get it done. But to me, part of that is like I know you trust your guys, but read how the game's going and just we had figured out. The last one was a 4th and 3 at the Philadelphia 45. That was with 118 left in the third. I probably would have went for it there just because we were on Philadelphia's side of the field. It's getting it, almost to the fourth quarter. That's a normal one that we would go for. But at that point we were 0 for 5, 0 for 4. This is going to make it 0 for 5. I still think at
is
this
this
point,
the one where the ball was just kind of low? Amon-Ra was open, but the ball was low.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Because even that play call was like that. That kind of was there. And you're right. That's that's classic. Where we're at 4th and 3, the play call was on, the field position was on, the status of the game. Like that all makes perfect sense. It's the other ones that didn't.
Yep. Yeah. I just think that the way our defense is playing, you have to trust them to make a play. We're going to sack Hurts. We're going to do something. It wasn't like we were getting lucky early in the game. We had their number, and Philadelphia, yes, were they successful in a similar vein that we were successful moving down the field? But Goff still had like double the amount of passing yards that double the amount of passing yards that Hurts did, and Hurts' legs weren't killing us either. So it's not like they were destroying us in the run game. I just don't understand. Dan Campbell's a super smart guy, and I think part of it was him just being stubborn, and maybe just haven't not getting into the play calling groove yet and playing. This is the best defense. The Vikings defense played us pretty well, but this was the best defense that we had played. The Vikings game was more play calling and just not getting in the flow of things. I think if Dan Campbell was calling the game, we'd probably win that game. This one was a really good. Philadelphia's defense is coming on. They were healthy on that side of the ball. We still should have won that game. We still could have won that game. I am still positive about this team. I don't know about you, but I know we're out of the playoff picture right now. Does it hurt my stomach when I think about it? Yeah, it does. But we have plenty of time to play in this season. We could turn this. We could get the offense right. Our defense is playing at a championship level right now. We could win a Super Bowl with this defense, especially in playoff time. I love that we could lean on this defense.
And people have to remember, I mean, this was like that 50-50 game that we could kind of afford to lose. Obviously, you don't want to lose any of them, but I mean, you're looking at the schedule. This was the one that's like, this is going to be a pretty big test. And you know what? It'd be huge to get a win. It's not over if you get a loss. This is one of the ones where you want to see what you're made of. And unfortunately, we just did not come out and perform. But you look who we're playing up. Like, I mean, now we don't have any more 50-50 games, depending on if the NFC North opponents kind of take each other out. We've got to get together some wins. The only other one that's like a really daunting game on the schedule right now is outside of the division is the Rams, right? I mean, we've got the Giants next, a huge game on a short week against the Packers. The Cowboys another week after that on Thursday. Then the Rams for me is the biggest one. And then by the time the season goes on, we're playing these games at Minnesota, at Chicago. Like I said, if they've already picked each other apart, we may already have a pretty good idea of where we're going to be at. The division is still within reach. You know,
Mhm.
congrats to the Bears for, leading the division after week 11 because they're acting like the Super Bowl's in their sights. I saw something online that said the Bears are 4 plays away from being like 3-8 or something like that,
Yeah.
or 3 and
Yeah.
7. Yeah. So I mean, the division is very much still within grasp. This is not like we've missed our last chance and now we have to have the stars align perfectly and it's not up to us anymore. If we do our job over the next few weeks, then it's still 100% the ball is in our court. We play our football, we're going to be fine. The playoffs are going to be there. The only way we don't make the playoffs is if we come out flat again. We can't afford to do that anymore.
Yep.
Are you concerned that Dan Campbell taking over the plays then, like, I don't know the right way to word this, I guess, like, shortens up his time or like his ability to be able to do other things inside the building, whether that's just game prep, motivation? Like, I mean, obviously he had his hand in a lot of stuff anyway, but do you
Mhm.
think the play calling is something that takes up too much time during the week for him now, or do you think that's kind of something that's determined, like Morton still prepares everything and he's just the one in charge on game day?
I mean, it's obviously going to take up. He's got to devote some time to it, some practice. He can't just go in there and just, he hasn't been doing this for years, so he's got to figure out, some way either delegating or, just being more efficient with his time. I am concerned about it, and I think you should be concerned about it. It's something that's new. Um, something that we probably glossed over last week because of the results were so good, but we'll see how this goes. I mean, I have faith that Dan Campbell will do what's best for this team. Whether it's going to be good enough for us to win a Super Bowl, we'll see. But I have a feeling, Dan Campbell felt strong enough that he's got to take these play calling away from John Morton, and I don't think he did it for any selfish reasons. He did it, because he thought it was going to be the betterment of this team, and he, has already acknowledged that he can't do it all. That he's only one person, um, and I trust the people he's hired, so he's going to have you know people in place to do it. But yeah, we'll see. And as far as we'll see in the coming weeks. I mean, we got another, you know, easier game, I would say, against the Giants to get right and get another practice before we start playing, the Packers, which is going to be a big game. What are you concerned about it?
No, I wouldn't say I'm concerned about it. It's just something to think about. Is that he's got more on his plate now. It's going to be interesting to see week in and week out how the game prep and how everything goes. This next one will be really telling because if we don't come out prepared against the Giants and the Giants play us close like they did the Packers, that would suck. We don't want that.
No, we don't. And Ford Field, I feel like we're going to come out and do our thing. And I'm hoping our secondary get some picks out there. Doesn't sound like Kirby's going to be back this week, but I also feel like when Kirby gets back, there's a turnover waiting to happen
Right,
back there,
right.
and that is a game changer thing. So I want to get Kirby back. I want him for the playoffs. So whatever they're doing to keep him in is fine with me. But um, yeah, I really want Kirby back. Dark Knight says that absolute loss that game and no chance of winning. I disagree. Um, we had definitely a chance of winning. It just didn't work out that way. The Eagles played better than us. What can I say?
I mean,
Uh,
we had a chance all the way to the very end. So,
yes.
it
Yep.
wasn't like we were ever completely out of it. There was never a
No.
lost cause.
No. I agree. One thing I wrote some notes. And I just wanted to really the fourth downs going forward on fourth downs. There's things that I think you know the league as a whole are getting used to teams going forward on fourth down, not just the Lions. Whereas what I've noticed is like used to be a lot of confusion for the other teams when fourth down would happen and we'd go for it and we could take advantage of that. That's not happening as much. So I think that has to be taken into consideration when you're going for the fourth. Teams are more prepared for it, especially with the Lions, but as the league as a whole are getting used to it and they're just treating it as another down. As before it was like this big panic because it was brand new and now teams are going for it, and people were their coaches didn't have the players prepared. Whereas I see now that it's just another down, and these guys are playing it like how they were playing it on third down before.
True. But I mean, you got the right play call and you're going for it on 4th and 1, 4th and 2. You like your odds more often than not to get that.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying that they shouldn't go for it or whatever. I'm not arguing for any of that, but I'm just saying that's a difference I'm seeing is that,
Right.
as
There's
a
no last
whole,
minute subs. There's no like scramble to get the right personnel out there because they are well aware of what we do. And even
right,
when we line up in punt formation, they're like, we're just going to keep our defense out here to be safe.
keep them go. Yeah. So, uh, I realize that you're probably in some pain right now. So let's wrap this up. And if you've missed the beginning of the show, Jacob is, had his appendix out yesterday, so he is being a big trooper for us today. So we talked a little bit about the Roar Alert Great Guarantee, but let's just wrap it up. I thought Tessa was going to have his best game for Lions. Not even close. You said Jack Campbell, however, and I will give you, we kind of really didn't even talk about the tush pushes, like us stopping them. I don't think we gave it enough time in the show, but I was super impressed with it, and Jack Campbell was part of that, just like flogging that up. Their big boys up front just stopped them and showed the rest of the league how to do it. I was super impressed with it, and
Yeah, we
Dan
talked about
Campbell
that
was
before.
probably super proud of like that. Like we didn't vote for it, and then we went in and did. He's like, you just got to stop it, and we did. So I loved it.
Right. That's what we were talking about. Like, well, you know what? I kind of do want to see our defense against their offense. I just don't want it to be in a situation where, they score or win the game because of it. And then it wasn't really, right? We stopped them. Jack Campbell, season high tackles. He had 15 tackles in this
15.
game. So, yeah,
Yeah.
flying over the field. Huge part of the defense.
Yep. No, he's something we can't let go. Great guarantee. I said penalty's gonna be called on Philly during a tush push play, and there's two of them, so I hit that one, which is good. You said Gibbs was gonna go 100 plus yards, but you had to say rushing. You should have said
I
total
know, right?
yards. You would have hit it, but
Should have played it safe.
should have. So, um, I know you're probably on Norco, Percocet. I don't know what other, Toradol. You got any final thoughts that you want to say before we head out of here?
Not really. Disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed, right? Like, wanted to see more out of it.
Yeah.
Wanted to see more out of this game for us, and we didn't get it done. So,
Yep.
that makes every other game hold just a little bit more weight than it did before this one.
Mm-hmm.
So the season is not over. Don't count us out yet. I know the fact that we've fallen out of the playoff picture has really rubbed some fans the wrong way. I still have no belief in the Bears, though. So I
agree. Yeah, that everything, like you said, they're just a few plays from being under 500 and out of this thing, and we still. Dark Knight says, "Y'all wanted Philly. Y'all got Philly. Stop making excuses." I don't believe that anyone made excuses. We said you guys played better. I'm sorry that you feel like we're making excuses, but I think you're hearing something other. You guys played better than us. We just didn't win. Offense didn't do good. Your defense played great. Our defense played great. It was just we didn't make the plays when we needed to.
there's no way
I
you
will.
listen to the whole show.
Yeah, exactly. Dan Campbell, keeps saying my final thought is Dan Campbell keeps saying we're so close. So it's one player here, one player there. My worry is that we're getting this late in the season and we're still having this issue. I don't like that. The margin of error is getting smaller just because of the loss in this game. Like you said, it's not so small that we have to be perfect, but it is getting to the point where we need our playmakers to make a play on our big money plays. And that's Goff, that's Amon Ra, that's JMO, Gibbs, Dave Montgomery, offensive line, whoever it is, everyone needs to come together and make a play. So I need to see that, and we need to start this week versus the Giants, and I need to see a better game where we're dominating in all three phases and feeling good about it. Because in the Commanders game, I don't think we played our best defense. And we played much better defense against the Eagles. I want to see the full thing against the Giants. So we go into Green Bay and be able to dominate them because we have to beat Green Bay. If we don't beat Green Bay on Thanksgiving, I am getting very worried at that point.
Yeah, that'd be tough to get the division, depending on what happens, to them elsewhere. But we want to win the divisional games for sure. And you know,
Yep.
this is going to be a test for the offensive line because the Giants, they do not have scrubs on the defensive line. So it's
No.
not going to be easy for the offensive line. And that's kind of what, seems to be the people that are getting the most blame is that the offensive line is just not holding quite long enough. And we're not able to execute the way we want to because the offensive line is not quite there. And I don't know if that's them, just not doing a great job or if it's because we've been so spoiled by the offensive line in the past, before Frank left that we were able to, have so much time and pretty much do things at will. But they got to step it up here. I know
Yep.
Miles Frazier is going to be coming soon, so maybe he'll play some meaningful snaps later.
Yeah, the more I think about it, and like last night, I was like, man, Frank was there. We're doing better, and
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's been hard. I mean, missing Frank has been the biggest deal on this team this year. As far as like us getting our offense going, I think Frank did so much for us, getting the communication and taking a little bit off Jared's plate.
Yeah,
I'm
100%.
not saying that Jared can't do it. I think that he can. I have faith in him, but I also think that it's noticeable not having Frank out there.
For sure.
All right. For my Norco induced friend over there, Jacob, I am Jason. We'll be back on Wednesday. The pod will be out Thursday. We have Team Vivelo from the New York Giants on. So we have someone that's coming on, and we have some cool shirts that we're going to show you guys on Wednesday. Some real fun shirts that are Lions related. So check us out for that. And if you want to see a visual, check us out on YouTube because these shirts are hilarious and yeah, they're a good time. So I'll tease that, and we'll see you guys later on this week. For Jacob, I'm Jason. Go Lions.